Okay, good morning. We are continuing now with a very special session this morning, a tribute to a great man, Roberto Salmon. It is a pleasure to be here to kickstart this tribute, joined by Adriana Reséndez from the IBWC, Maria-Elena, former commissioner from the US, and Carlos de la Parra. So it is an honor to be part of this tribute to Roberto Salmon, a distinguished public servant, former commissioner of the Mexican section of the International Boundary and Water Commission, and founding partner of the Luken Center for Water and Environmental Strategies. But above all, a dedicated public servant, a generous colleague, and a passionate advocate for the protection of our shared water resources. It is also a true privilege to share this space with two equally remarkable leaders, Adriana Reséndez Maldonado, Commissioner of the Mexican section of the IBWC, and Maria-Elena, former Commissioner of the US section of the IBWC, as well as Carlos de la Parra. Thank you for being here. Their presence here today speaks to the continuity and strength of the institutions that Roberto helped to build and elevate. We are here to honor not just his titles or achievements, but the person he was, a passionate advocate for water conservation, a skilled diplomat, and a bridge between nations and communities. Roberto was known for his outstanding leadership, which was not only defined by the positions he held, but by the quiet strength with which he brought people together, built trust across borders, and made things happen. In that sense, I would like to highlight just a few of the exceptional efforts he made throughout his remarkable career. During his time as commissioner, Roberto oversaw the signing of 11 binational acts, each one advancing cooperation between Mexico and the United States. One of the most groundbreaking was Minute 319, signed in 2012, which marked the first time both countries agreed to allocate water from the Colorado River specifically for environmental purposes. Thanks to that visionary decision, a pulse flow brought water back to parts of the river's delta, reviving ecosystems and reconnecting communities with their natural heritage. Roberto believed deeply in the power of diplomacy, of dialogue, and of shared responsibility. He understood that water is more than a resource. It is a bond that links us, a lifeline that sustains our people and our future. To understand the true impact of his legacy, we must also recognize the vital role of the IBWC, a unique binational institution tasked with managing the complex shared waters of more than 3,000 kilometers of border between Mexico and the United States. Since its origins in the late 19th century, and especially under the 1944 Water Treaty, the Commission has served as a model of sustained, peaceful cooperation between two countries. Through this commission, Mexico and the United States have built and maintained joint dams, coordinated responses to floods and droughts, addressed sanitation and pollution, and more recently, launched efforts to incorporate environmental sustainability into their shared water management strategies. And in this context, Roberto Salmon played a defining role. His leadership helped modernize and humanize the mission of the Commission. He turned technical negotiations into opportunities for trust building. He brought the voice of border communities into international agreements. And he reminded us that water diplomacy is not just about rules, it's about people. Furthermore, his influence extended far beyond the Commission. As a founding partner of the Luken Center, he continued to promote collaborative and science-based approaches to water challenges in the border region. He remained committed to dialogue and to empowering the next generation of water leaders. Today, as we reflect on his extraordinary contributions, let us also draw inspiration from the values he upheld: service, humility, and a steadfast commitment to the common good. Thank you, and now I'll give the floor to Adriana.
Thank you. I have my notes. But first of all, I would like to say thank you to Mr. Dr. Fernandez de Castro for the opportunity of this recognition of Roberto Salmon and for allowing us to share his contribution to the binational water management. The IBWC is a unique organization. It's an international organization with a different organization of the others international organization. It is in charge of the compliance with binational treaties and agreements related with boundaries and waters between Mexico and the United States. The issues addressed by SILA includes water, borders, demarcation, surface water, groundwater issues, sanitation, among others. In few words, the story of the border is the story of the IBWC, SILA. When Roberto Salmon arrived at SILA in 2009, he knew very little about the SILA history, and he knew very little about how SILA operate. However, in a very short time, he learned everything about it, and even more, his contribution changed SILA operations. He was a commissioner who understood the need to modernize SILA. He connected the SILA with the public, he connected with the community, and he showed in one way and another the importance of the SILA work to the government of Mexico and the United States. He had the ability to see not only the problems, but he has the ability to know how to solve it. I would like to mention some of the topics on he was a leader, he was visionary, like Cristina says. One of the greatest contributions of Roberto Salmon was cooperation on the Colorado River. When Roberto arrived at SILA, we were beginning a process of cooperation between the two countries to address the scarcity of the Colorado River. Under his leadership, the binational talks and discussions moved toward a win-win cooperation scheme. He signed 5 Colorado River agreements in a very short time. Water establishes innovating cooperation measures in both countries. I don't know if his love for the environmental was born during these negotiations or it was a love he already had. Definitely, he had a green color heart. Do you remember that? He wore green skirts. He had a green love for a green heart because he loves the environment, or I don't know if he was in love of the environment of the Colorado River. He had to deal with one of the most significant flood events on the Rio Grande, flood control events on the Rio Grande with the Hurricane Alex in 2010. At this time, he had to take critical decisions for the integrity of the border population and the border infrastructure, and he did it so very well. I remember that time he worked 24 hours per day. He worked at 5 a.m. He was in the office. He needed to take many decisions to attend that particular problem that we had in 2010. In the area of sanitation, he began a salinity study because he knows the border had a very big problem with the infrastructure of sanitation issues. So he decided to do a study of the main cities and the border. He didn't finish that, but that is a study that we use to attend the sanitation problems nowadays. Those of us who had the opportunity to work with Roberto Salmon found in him the guidance we needed not only to do our work, but also the advice and example to follow. Dr. Salmon was not only a good boss, he was my boss, who guided in our work, but also someone who gave us professional and personal advices. He was a SILA commission for 11 years. In that time, he faced challenges and difficulties, but also achieved many solutions. As Cristina said, he signed 11 minutes, which include some issues of the IBWC. We always remember Dr. Salmon as a man who gave us, or who gave his best to the institution, provided the needed leadership in Mexican section, and modernized many aspects of the institution for the benefits of bilateral relationships. Personally, I will remember Dr. Salmon as an honest man, but above all, he was a person of faith. And I would like to share some particular kind of Roberto Salmon. He had a very particular kind to say. For his friends, he had always something to say, because like Carlos de la Parra, it was not Carlos de la Parra anymore. For Sila, Carlos de la Parra is C de la P. And for me, I was ABC because I had 3 names. And for other persons, like JJ or something like that. And I would like to share this cláusula, I'm going to say in Spanish. Él tenía una cláusula que era la cláusula Sean. Yo creo que muchos de ustedes el día de hoy se apegaron a esa cláusula Sean. Esa cláusula Sean significaba dormir 1 hora más y no desayunar. Eso lo hacía por su amigo Jean Carlos, que tenía esa cláusula. Entonces, el día de hoy yo me apegué a esa cláusula, dormía 1 hora más, la cláusula Sean. Esa era una de las contribuciones que él daba y que tenía, era un compañero y era un amigo para muchos. Thank you again for allowing us to share these experiences alongside Roberto Salmon, who lives a legacy at Sila. We will miss him. We will miss him, and he was a very good friend of mine. Thank you.
Hello. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Dr. Fernando de Castro, thank you for the invitation. I'm really grateful to be here. My name is Maria-Elena. I was the commissioner for the U.S. section of the IBWC starting in 2021 and recently left my post. One of the things that I want to highlight, I know it's been really interesting talking to people not here in this audience not knowing what the IBWC is, but the IBWC is considered one of the premier binational organizations in the world. There are about 300 watersheds that cross country lines, and less than 1/3 of them have any sort of institutional framework for cooperation. Institutional frameworks could be memorandums of understanding, or, as in our case, we are considered the gold standard of a treaty, the 1944 Water Treaty. And so given that this organization of the IBWC has 2 sections, and we are the highest ranking federal agency outside of Washington, D.C. The IBWC reports directly to the office of the White House or the president. It doesn't have any other agencies that it reports to. And we're located in El Paso, Texas, and Ciudad Juarez. And so given that, my exposure to Roberto Salmon was when I was general manager of the Border Environment Cooperation Commission located in Ciudad Juarez. And I had the privilege of working with Roberto. And one of the things that I admired about Roberto, as Cristina said, was his humanity. He made water about people. And I think that's one of the things that has been really insightful of the previous panel, was how do you have inclusivity? He didn't need a panel to tell him that inclusivity of water was needed. It was something that he came in with knowing, and I don't know if it was because of the rural areas that he grew up in or not, but he understood that piece of it, that humanity. And because of that, when you're dealing with watersheds that cross boundaries, you're talking about 2 different sovereign countries. And bullying and threatening is not the best way of cooperation. One of the things that he taught me was that one country's loss cannot be another country's gain. That really it's about growing the pie. And that's actually really interesting because when I did my MBA, that was like rule number one that you learned, right? In a business community, right? Is that you want to grow the pie, especially when geography is not going to change. And I think he really realized that from the start. But I think the one thing that I'm really grateful also for Roberto is when I became the IBWC commissioner, I went and I visited with previous IBWC commissioners to tell me, what did you not finish? And he was very generous with his time and sharing his knowledge and sharing what he felt was unfinished. But the one grateful thing I am grateful to Roberto is that he groomed Adriana Reséndez. He saw the strength in her because she was the first female to take on to be the IBWC commissioner. I was the second female. And I think together, as two females, we really took the agency to a different level. And I'm really grateful to him for that because he understood that getting things done was really important. And from what I understand, when he was commissioner of the IBWC, he pushed as a Mexican section, he pushed the US section to think creatively. And that's what led to the innovation of Minute 319. And he left that legacy within the agency of the Mexican section. So when I came to the US section, I had good raw material to work with because of the work that Roberto Salmon left on the Mexican side, and I worked to establish on the US side. Thank you again. Thank you for this recognition to Roberto. He will be truly missed. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Rafael, for this space. We're missing here someone who should be here, and I'm sure he would be, Gaston Luquen. He would have been here to pay tribute to Roberto Salmon, and he would have said something that I will now embody in his absence. He referred to Roberto Salmon as one of the unsung heroes in the Mexican government. These are bureaucrats that work just beneath the radar and actually accomplish tremendous things. Of course, we've heard about his integrity and his love of Mexico, but I think that Gaston Luquen would highlight two things about Roberto Salmon that I think are very important. First of all, the nature in him to be proactive and not allow bold policies to stand in the way. He would embrace these bold policies, and I will tell you an example, an anecdote about that. The second issue is the open and receptive way in which he conducted the International Boundary and Water Commission, the Mexican section, SILA, and allow civil society and government to partner in accomplishments that are now evident in the Colorado River. The first anecdote comes to mind regarding his proactive nature of how was something that we developed together called talleres deliberativos, or deliberation workshops. These deliberation workshops were conducted under the auspices of just a closed group. At that time, I was at El Colegio de la Frontera Norte, and so we conducted a couple of them within COLEF. And these were closed workshops that Roberto requested so that he could just think back and listen to what people were thinking about the policies then. Now, I'm talking about 2010, and at that point, there had never been any reduction in water allocation for Mexico. And it was clear that from the policies in the US the United States, the 7 basin states and the US federal government were seeking solidarity from Mexico and to cut allocation given any shortages. And so we talked about that, and at that point, the Mexican commissioner had 2 options. He could either hide behind the 1944 treaty, the gold standard, as Maria-Elena referred to, and continue to pressure the U.S. for 1.5 million acre-feet of water, or we could face reality. And we were discussing that in this room, and there was just a unanimous consensus there that Mexico probably needed to move forward and face reality given the fact that there was a shortage already underway. There was about a 10-year shortage already present. And he was listening and taking notes, and in his mild-mannered way, looked at everyone and said, "Sure, I think you're all right, but in this room, only one person is going to have to sign that minute." And so he knew that it was a bold measure that needed to happen and took the step. In minute 319 that was referenced by both, Mexico, for the first time, allowed the possibility that Mexico would reduce its own allocation. Now, the second thing that I want to refer to, and Adriana referred to it perfectly as well, is this knack for being green. He would come out with statements, and in the discussion, he would turn to us and say, "Did I sound too green? Was it really? Am I coming out of the closet as an environmentalist?" And in that process, he really engendered how minute 319 and minute 323, which, by the way, this is the button for minute 323, something unique happened in the world. The 300+ watersheds in the world that Maria-Elena referred to have agreed more than 150 international agreements on water. And they refer to industrial processes and dividing the waters and flood control. But never had there been an agreement, an international agreement by 2 governments to provide water for the ecosystem. And that's what minute 319 did. It now is referred to as first the pulse flow and now federal water deliveries to the river, despite the fact that the Colorado River is suffering its worst drought shortage in history. This is a response that was coined by the collaboration between government and society, that despite the fact that there is this shortage, climate change will not wait. Climate change will not allow a future generation to get to take care of this. Is climate change going to be reversed by just monitoring CO2, or is it going to be reversed by the restoration of ecosystems? And that's the legacy that I think Roberto leaves. A renewed SILA, a renewed Mexican section of the International Boundary and Commissioner, in the International Boundary and Water Commission, a renewed relationship, partnership with the US, and a renewed link between government and society. So I'll just say, may he rest in peace. Thank you very much, Rafael.